Thank you for watching. As always, this is Afro Revolt, and we try to bring to you whatever is trending across the globe. Now, when I saw the revolutionary movement, that's the Gen Z in Kenya, I was very sure that Joshua Maponga would make a statement on it and urge the youths to continue pressing hard for changes that they need in the country. Kenya is facing a moment that it has never faced before, because the youths are seeing that this is not the way to run a government, and you have to change how to do things. In the recent times, just yesterday, the country's Inspector General, that is Japhet Koome, resigned amidst protest calls amongst the youths, and also the cabinet has been taken home, and that is something that is very, very interesting, and we have to delve in it and see what to say about it. Now let's watch it and make a comment in the end.
The African children, talking about their African problems and finding those critical African solutions. Here we are, 2024, and we have begun to see an interesting tide and movement around the continent, particularly when it comes to the issues of governance. We've just finished up the elections in South Africa. We also have witnessed within this season the takeover of power in Mali, the uprising that has happened in Burkina Faso, in Somalia, and in some of the ECOWAS countries. And while we are still excited about that, boom, Kenya comes onto the table with a total revolution in the spirit of Mau Mau. The young people are confident, and they are sure, they are tired of this whole concept and principles of managed neo-colonialism, particularly when it comes to financial stability, welfare of the Africans, the sharing of resources for the African children. And we want to stand with the young people that are in Kenya, and as they are leading the way. I think it's less than 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago when Ghana's ruling party lost its power to the opposition party, and Kenya is now coming down. And if you can follow carefully also, our revolution moves like that, and just takes you to observe that Kwame Nkrumah's, when they started off in Ghana being the first country to be independent, then from Ghana it moved over to Kenya, and the Mau Mau, and Tanzania, Chama cha Mapinduzi. Then we come down to Zambia, we also come down to Zimbabwe, Chimurenga, then Namibia, then South Africa. So South African context, in terms of liberation, they will catch up, but they will catch up quite later on. But what we see happening in Kenya is not just a drop in the bucket, it is a surgence, it's a new energy that is coming onto the platform, where the young people are beginning to challenge the system. The only problem that we have, if it is a problem and a solution, is that when we fight these governments, when we remove them from power, what do we replace them with? The problem or the danger or the disadvantage would be to change hyenas with foxes. You remove one leader from power, and then you put another leader in the same democratic system. Young people, ladies and gentlemen, until we fully come to comprehension that the colonial democratic system will not work. Learn from Britain. Democracy will not work. Learn from United Arab Emirates. Democracy will not work. Learn from the Arab states. Democracy will not work. Learn from Singapore. Learn from China. Learn from North Korea. We needed to go back to find those indigenous governance systems. Call your elders in your cities, in your provinces, in your countries. Call your traditional elders together. Include women and include young people. Let them be a council that is above the government. The government must report to the people. The government must not be accountable to itself. The government must be accountable to the people. And the people must supervise the political system. Because this model of having minority in terms of parliamentarians ruling and governing the majority cannot work. A more representative form of governance, as we used to have it in the olden days, where the elders would sit together, women would sit, young people would sit, rites of passages would be put in place. And as we have already mentioned in another production that we did, all governments are illegitimate. All governments are illegitimate because they are collecting taxes on the land that does not belong to them. All African governments that have gone into power, they've gone into power and they've made themselves the kings of those land. And they are collecting taxes on a land that does not belong to them. In fact, we went to war to fight for the land, not to fight for democracy. We went to fight for the land. But unfortunately, the land and the system of indigenous governance systems was never returned. And the kings and the owners of the land were never given the land. Now the kings are actually paying taxes on their own land, when these businesses must be paying rent and taxes to the local indigenous leaders. Boom! And the best of them all was Orania in South Africa. Orania, there's a country in South Africa called Orania, where the Afrikaners, the white Afrikaners, have decided to create their own city, their own town, their own flag, their own currency, and govern themselves. Why? They are preserving themselves, self-determination. They want to rule themselves. Blacks are not allowed to live there. Blacks are not allowed to work there. And this has become an exclusive place where only Afrikaners can live because they feel threatened that their culture is being eroded by the democracy. So if the Afrikaners are allowed to have their own country in a country, are allowed to run their own self-determination program in a country, the question is, why must the Zulus not also be self-determining? Why must the Sutus, the Vendors, the Tongas, the Tswanas also not do the same? Why must the African constantly be told of this concept of collective government, but the collective government is only benefiting a few? As such, the resources that are in the country need to be distributed fairly. And this comes to one of the statuses that I had put, and I think some 4 years ago, the issue of decentralizing capital cities. Decentralizing capital cities. I'll take Zimbabwe as an example. And I know that this video will reach the powers that be, that we do not need to constantly be expanding capital cities. Because by expanding capital cities, you are putting the burden of the entire country on a city. These cities were not built to be lived by millions of Africans. They were built for a few white people and a few servants. So now when you have 1, 3, 4 million people sitting around the infrastructure of a city like Bulawayo or a city like Harare, the water becomes a problem, electricity becomes a problem, roads become a problem, hospitals become a problem. It is not that the services are poor, but they are overburdened. So here's my free advice to Honorable E.D. Mnangagwa. Take the Department of Tourism, the whole office, move it from Harare to Victoria Falls. Let Victoria Falls have the Minister of Tourism at the place where tourism is happening. That will move away most of the tourism directors, their families, their children and everything. Huck, Victoria Falls. Move the Department of Economics, Business, Economic Affairs. Move it to Bulawayo. Because strategically speaking, Bulawayo is a junction. Good transport, infrastructure, railway lines, and proximity to Botswana, proximity to South Africa, proximity to Namibia, proximity to Zambia. And Bulawayo can actually become the financial hub of Zimbabwe. Move then agriculture. Say to Mutare, the whole Department of Agriculture, move to Mutare. The Department of Education, move it to Gweru, Department of Mining and etc. Maybe move it to Kwekwe and etc. And then Department of Research and move it to Chirezi or somewhere there. You begin to see that when you move the departments away from the capital city, you are able to release the pressure on the city. And then you can leave Harare as the capital city of your legal structures and parliament and etc. But then you'll have been able to distress the infrastructure itself by moving these departments away. South Africa, Durban is for tourism, for example, and Cape Town is where the parliament is happening. Bloemfontein is the judiciary capital, and Pretoria remains a state house, and etc. By so doing, we're able to spread out the resources of the country to the specific areas. The universities that are in these areas, in Bulawayo, then you have your university that specializes in finance. In Victoria Falls, universities that specialize in hospitality, and then the Gweru Kwekwe do the education, the mining, the technologies, the Mutare, and you release the pressure, spread the cake rather than collecting money from the whole country and feeding it into Harare. And at the end of the day, everyone begins to run to the capital city. The quicker we begin to spread these resources across the whole country, be it Botswana, be it Zambia, be it Zimbabwe, be it Malawi, avoid the capital city mentality, because then you leave other parts of the country in a West state, yet they're also contributing to the GDP. As such, it will be critical that when we want to deal with infrastructure development, we need to spread the infrastructure resources within the entire city, entire country, entire continent. And by so doing, I think we'll have been able to harness the energy of the young people to develop themselves where they are, And then you don't need to be running to Harare or running to Bulawayo, because wherever you are, there is sufficient infrastructure that can actually help to develop. Then whoever the minister is of that department, where they are, with the chiefs that are there, set up a council there, then the council that reports maybe to the higher government, that is wherever, or the council of the elders. Then decentralize. We need to come up with a strategy to rework the model of leadership within Africa. We cannot have leaders who are being bribed by the West, bribed by the East, bribed by the North, and they come around here and they implement the principles of their colonial masters. They implement the principles of their handlers. And what we end up having? We end up having stooges that act like presidents and prime ministers. Meanwhile, they are taking instructions from the other powers that be. The young people of today are no longer as naive to be dealt with as if they are stupid. They are learned, they have studied, they have world trends, and they may have an understanding exactly as to what is happening in other countries. And we must also remember, while we are doing that, we must preserve ourselves as Africans. We must preserve ourselves. If we are in a hurry to get into the global village, and yet we lack the moral, ethical, African Ubuntu fiber, we'll still end up again as slaves in the very global market in which we are rushing to. With those few words, I wish to encourage the young people in Kenya that keep the struggle high. And as you are doing that, start thinking and combine the indigenous governance systems with a bit of the educated technological system. Find out for yourself a hybrid form of governance. You will have failed to push out Ruto from the office and then push another president, another prime minister into the same office, who will be implementing the same laws, the same governance structures, the same Roman Dutch law that I've been preaching for the longest of time. That law is useless. It is misplaced. You cannot run Roman Dutch law in Africa. We are not Romans and we are not Dutch. We needed to start putting that between our ears. And the educated Africans, who when they look at me, they say, hey, Maponga is going mad. Maponga is going crazy. Don't worry. You will wake up one day. Time is with you. Don't worry. The more you study, the more you grow. You may just find that there is some sanity in my madness. Those that have made it in this world have found their own cultural vortex, their own cultural roots. They found their purpose and reason for being. They found their identity. They found their culture. Look at China, close out Facebook, close out TikTok, close out all these other things. Be selfish with the minds of your young people. Feed them with the information that will develop them to own, to respect, to be innovative, and to develop their own countries. And until we begin to combine the knowledge that we now have with the history that we are coming from, to come up with a hybrid sort of system that will take us out of this confusion and maze of neo-colonialism, we will constantly be talking that things are not changing. Yet things will not change until you and I change the way we think. Because we think that the white people have solutions for black people. It can't be that the very same people who abused us can come around and now they have a solution for us. They're not interested in Africa. They're interested in the resources of Africa. And these resources must be beneficiated on the ground. And when they beneficiate them, where are they taking those resources to? Well, we need, therefore, to start understanding that the movement that we are now having, the rising up and the saging of the African spirits, it's almost like our ancestors are coming back alive and well. Alive and well. And we're going to be starting up a movement in Zimbabwe in the next few weeks for the returning of the skulls of our ancestors who had their heads were chopped and they were moved over into Britain just for a decent funeral. We're not asking for anything much more than that. And it is important that as Africans, we begin to look at new models of governance for ourselves and for our children. Be selfish about your economy, own your banks, own your insurance companies, own your academic curriculums, own your hospitals, own your pharmaceuticals, invest your money in your own selves and develop products for yourselves. And let's build the Africa that we want. One Africa, one passport, one army, one foreign exchange, one currency, one central bank, one army. We protect our borders, and all our countries are provinces, And the problem we have is not the people. The problem are our leaders who are now worried, if we join and we make Africa one, what will I be? I will lose being a president. I mean, even if now you're a president, what are we benefiting from your presidency? You can still work as a governor. You can still work as a leader. You can still work as a provincial leader. So we needed to start thinking strategically. How can we have one seat at the Security Council? And that is for ourselves to be together, to unite as Africans. And once we are united with the 1.4, 1.5, 2 billion people that are walking on the expanse of this continent, we can begin to have a voice that is audible. And our resources are sufficient enough to sponsor that agenda and create the Africa that we owe it to our children. Before we go, we owe it to our children to leave for them a united continent. 54 African presidents failed to undo what 10, 15 people, white people did in the Berlin Conference. Took a pen and paper and drew maps through the dining rooms of other people and cut up the country. 54 leaders failed to come together to undo what 10 white people did. And then you say you are in power. I don't call that power. You are in power, but you are not in control. What is important is for us to begin to talk the reality of African unity. And African unity will come when each country begins to develop itself and not be selfish as African political leaders to eat the resources only to ourselves. Let's share the resources with everybody. Create the Africa that is safe for us and for our children. With those few words, I want to thank you all for the time that you give me and the support that you constantly give to Farmers of Thought right here on your afternoon drive, live with Maponga J. Live with Maponga J, broadcasting for you from Mutare. Think well, Ngube, my own brother, the Ngube, Ngube. He says, I disagree with you on this one. I disagree in some topics, but this one, you are indeed on point. Oh, sorry, I did not read it correctly. Oh, thank you very much for the support. Tapua Mtseriwa, keep up the good work, Mzukuru. Yes, I am also with you. That Tapua Matesha, pleasure to see you. King Ora, Black Power, keep preaching the truth about Africa You are going to go mad slowly. Vuzijena Crispin is advising me. And how do you say that to your own brother? Anyway, I'm Vuzijena. And you go around public places now telling that your own brother is going mad. Chicha shupa Vuzijena. Tungu dana nam mazitaka shatak lilo pa media lilo kuman. Preach, my brother. We are watching you from Zambia. Keep up the good work. I've managed to read a few comments here. Mlongo, Sitali, Brian Michello, Glenn V. Thomas. Well, thank you for joining us. And King Power, Secheni, Rebecca, Seholwana, right in South Africa here. Thank you for watching also. Mugove, Duchemoyo, Boginkosi Kunene. I respect you so much, Baba. You are needed to deliver Africa. Keep on the good work. Mfundisi Chiso Maononga. Thank you for joining us also. Teacher Quant, powerful and good work. What is your take on what is currently happening in Congo? Evil. It's evil to the highest order. And I think the concept of coming up with one African army will actually help us to solve some of these problems. Because through one army, we can simply silence the guns in Congo. And Congo has enough water, enough resources for the rest of Africa. And it's very convenient for the Western world to keep Congo at war. Because the liberation of Congo means the unleashing of the greatest amount of resources which are being abused by the East and the West. So, and I think maybe on another week or so, I could focus a whole program on Congo. That has been one of the longest wars that are being fought in Africa. From Belgium to now. There's no single day that goes out in Congo and there's no gunshot there. I think maybe let me stop there, and I might want to do a program specifically looking at Congo. The message I've been preaching is now getting there. Ushengiwe, utelezi, ushenge, utisekuyazwakala. Yes, slowly but surely, you have me for this generation. I will shout until it gets there. I will look like I'm going mad, I'm going crazy, like I'm losing my marbles. Don't worry about me, don't worry about me. I have been sent to you to constantly share the message of unity, development for the African continent. And until that is achieved, my life, I'll put it on the block to deliver to that. Sipiwe, Liveni, please cover that topic when you have time, my father. I'll do that. I'll do the Congo program. Gen Z in Kenya, Viva! Viva in Kenya, yes, I've already mentioned it. When you remove Ruto, don't replace with another president. Find another solution. Now that you've destroyed the parliament, build the traditional one. Call the elders together and start mapping up a new. We are learning from you and we are taking notes. So do whatever you're doing and do it well, Gen Z. We are watching very carefully and taking notes also to see how we can also take the power back to the people and restore the dignity of the African people. We are tired of African leaders who are abusive towards Africans and they are enjoying resources for themselves. This land belongs to us and our children. I would also want to beg you to explain about the Christianity beginning in Egypt and Arabs. I've done lots of programs on Christianity. You can go on my YouTube channel and etc. Interviews. I think I have hundreds of videos that are there on the concept of Christianity and etc. I think you will still be able to find yourself there. Are you still a believer? Boss Wish is asking me, man, I don't need to believe in anything. Just ask me, am I alive? And I'm alive and I'm doing very well. Very well. You can only believe in what you don't know. So if you know it, you don't need to believe in it. And with those few words, I thank you. Yours truly, Maponga J. Chigaramboko, Garamashamba Huda. Chirana Vanji. Mamman Wisindu Shanos, with Tizas and Kubanana, Mangat Pedon Tamanos. Mtambo Paru, Ariva, Makaramba, Kurimo, Karimono, Chemane, way, Namshambane Gore, with Tizas and Kubanana Manga. I'm so happy to be with you, and we will be seeing again. Until we meet again, don't do what I wouldn't do, but if you do it.
The fire is burning, and it is a fire of change. We are not burning the continent, or we are not burning the world, but there are changes that are going to be effected going forward. That is the message that the Kenyan youths have told their president, William Ruto. And it started as a small thing whereby youths, or rather the IMF advised Kenyan president to impose taxation on the people through the Finance Bill 2024. But it was received with a total rejection that's spearheaded or sparked uproar amongst the citizens, and that's when they called for protests that shut down different towns across the country. Now, you saw the youths invading parliament and even setting fire in it, besides also the city hall, which is at the midst of the central business district of Nairobi. They set fire in the city hall and also interfered with very, very important government facilities. That is how the youths showed their hunger or their anger in the matters arising in the country, and they don't want any negotiation with the president. All they need is action. What is interesting mostly is how this wave is moving so fast, and controlling it has been so hard because they claim that they are leaderless, they are tribeless, they are partyless, and they are fearless. Fearless in a sense that they don't fear even the bullets. You saw people were being killed in the streets of Nairobi, but still they pressed on until the police disappeared from the streets because they couldn't manage the pressure. This is a worry for most of the leaders in Africa. It is a worry because for a long time, the African leaders have engaged in corrupt dealings without caring about the plights or the reason for being elected in office. For 2 years, people in Kenya claim that they haven't seen any change or they haven't seen anything that the president has done. Be it roads, no road has been built in 2 years. And most fascinating or thing that they also highlighted is the cabinet secretary for agriculture, that is Mithika Linturi, who is not even apologetic in the manner in which he did the distribution of fertilizer, fake fertilizer that saw farmers being or counting great losses across the country. So Africa must be worried. The leaders in Africa have to change their tact. They have to know that these times we are living in is not the same as the ones before, because we are in the age of information. If you say something today, it will be captured on camera and will be used against you if you don't do it, or if you don't say or walk the talk. That is what is changing this all narrative, or creating all this narrative of protests. Now, Julius Maponga is trying to advise the youths that that is the spirit we should have. We should have a revolutionary spirit whereby we tell our leaders that this is not the way to go. For a long time, you have really messed up our continent, and you haven't shown the way. You haven't done what we need, and you have subjected us to this level of poverty. For how long will you continue being cronies of the West? Because we are Africa, and we should do our business as Africans. Why do you always listen to advices of the West, even if they are so oppressive or are meant to terminate us and make us poor for a longest time possible? Now we have to change the world, because we are suffering. We as Africans have suffered for long, and we won't continue sitting and watching this happen. That is the message that Maponga is trying to bring across, and is giving an example of different revolutionary movements that are sweeping, or the wave that is sweeping across Africa. If you see, Uganda is currently saying that Occupy Kampala. That is a hashtag that will spread across Uganda and bring a change. Unexpected change is going to happen even in Uganda. Burkina Faso did it with Abraham Traore taking over and saying that I don't need anything to do with the whites. So let's build this spirit. Let's show the way to our leaders. This is the time you have to change your tax. You have to know that you are elected to change your increase the living standards of the people, not to maim them or not to subject them to high levels of poverty. That is the message that Africans are sending to their leaders. Now, I want you to hit our comment section and tell us what you think about this issue. And also, do not forget to subscribe and like and share this video. Thank you, and may God bless you.